2020 has been a hell of a year. We're in the middle of a global pandemic, a national recession, and we've seen people from communities all across the country rise up against the long history of racism in America. In fact, I even read an article about an invasion of killer hornets that was supposed to come this year, and I'll be honest, when I read that, I was ready to throw in the towel. But fortunately, I think the killer hornets took one look at 2020, and they didn't want anything to do with it either, because I haven't seen them flying around. God bless. But of all these important issues that have risen, there's been some great conversations. And one of the main themes I've seen in these conversations is that these issues, as much as they might feel like they're new, they're not. And in fact, they've been around for a long time. Some since the foundation of this country. And one of those issues I was really passionate about, even before 2020, was the power of media. Not just the power of media to inform us, I think we all intuitively understand that, but really the power of media to shape our own perceptions of our ability to make change. How media shapes our own agency and our own efficacy. And I think this is critically important. And I'd love to do an experiment to show you why. So for everyone watching at home, raise your hand if you watch the national news. This might be NPR, CNN, MSNBC, you name it. Now I want you to keep your hand up if when you watch or read or engage in any form of national content, you jump off your couch. You are so excited about the future of America and you feel like you can make a difference easily. My hand goes down. And I suspect that many of your hands went down as well. And this isn't new. This isn't groundbreaking. The American Psychological Association even showed that over 50% of Americans, when they watch the news, have substantial worry and anxiety. Furthermore, subsequent studies showed that the more you actually engage in the news, the less you feel like you can make a difference. And that is a fundamental crisis, not just for our democracy, but for our communities. Because we're left now with two choices. You can either feel informed, but feel like you can't make an impact, or you can decide there's no impact to be made, why even bother about being informed anyway? And then you're not even familiar with the challenges at hand. And I think a solution to this is we need to stop focusing on national, and we need to focus and embrace local. What I mean by this is the feedback loop at a local level of change is so much more condensed. You can see a problem in your own backyard, you can get friends or an organization to really tackle that problem, and you can actually see change happen. And because you can see change happen, you believe in the possibility of it, and it builds your self-confidence and your self-agency. Now, this is not a talk about how national issues aren't important. I think they're critically important. And to some groups of people in America, they're an existential threat. But I think local activism is a gateway to national activism. You get involved locally, you learn the skill set and the mindset to make change, and then you can scale that up. Myself, when I first tried to make a difference, I tried to jump in right away at the national level. And I would write emails and I would join groups, and what I found is a lot of resistance, a lot of no, and I felt really disempowered. And what I think the local model does is it flips that script. It allows you to feel empowered and then scale up. And so I wanted to test this theory. Does local actually matter? And so me and a group of friends built a local media company called Bridge the City. And the idea was to connect people, resources, and ideas that inspired people to action locally. And over the course of 3 years, we've produced nearly 100 episodes. We've interviewed close to 200 guests. And I can report that, at least in my mind, the theory holds true. Local, you can have a great impact, and you can make a difference in your community. And the crux of my talk today is not to talk about the podcast, but to talk about the framework that if you're feeling disempowered or you're feeling uninspired about America, about national news, how you can use this framework in your own community to make a difference. And this framework is 3 simple steps. The first step is to vote local. So maybe this is true for you, but when I was growing up, whether it was a mix of privilege or ignorance or a unique cocktail of both, I thought the only election that mattered was the presidential election. And it was simple. You walked into the ballot box, you voted for the president, you hand your ballot in, you left, you saluted the flag, you did your civic duty, and you're good to go for 4 years. That's it. And as I got a lot older and a little wiser, I realized that there's so much more to it than that. And that elections don't just happen every 4 years, they happen every single year, sometimes multiple times per year. And these elections matter. They're your alderperson, your school board, your mayor, even in some localities they vote for their coroner. You're literally voting over your dead body. And these aren't low stakes elections as well, because take the Milwaukee School Board, for example. They control a budget of over $1 billion. That's more than the entire budget of the city of Milwaukee. But how many people do you think vote in this election? You might think it's 60% like a national presidential election, 30% like a midterm. It's not. In local elections, sometimes only 10% of voters are voting. And what this means is you have 10% of the population controlling where over $1 billion in resources is deployed right in your community. So if you really want to make an impact, yes, vote nationally, but unless you're in a handful of swing states and you want to compete with 1 million other voters, if you vote locally, that vote can sometimes have a larger impact. These elections are decided by 10, 5, sometimes even a single vote. The other thing about voting is it's not one step, it's 2. You vote for your elected officials, but then you also have to hold those accountable who you voted for. And it's here that local also has a unique advantage. I'm sure many of you have had this similar scenario. You see something your senator did, and you're very disappointed in that. And so you go online, you open up your email, and you type a beautiful professional email that points out why they were wrong and their hypocrisy and what they should have done instead, and you even threaten to not vote for them again. And you send it, and you walk away and you're like, I did good. That was pretty persuasive. I'm definitely changed their minds. And then, maybe 5 minutes later, ding, you hear the sound of your inbox. And now you're really confident. Wow, I changed their mind pretty quick. This is awesome. And you open that email, and what do you see? Dear Kyle, and odds are your name is misspelled. Thanks for your email. I'll take it into consideration. Best. And that's really hard to deal with. You spent all this time, and it feels like that outreach didn't really matter. But at local, it does, because locally, you don't need $1 billion or 100,000 people in your organization. Elected officials are more likely to listen to you. In fact, when we interviewed the mayor, he said that it takes 10 to 15 calls or emails to really get something on his radar. So again, if you want to make an impact, make sure you're voting locally. The second part of this framework is to spend locally. Now, I know I just said that we vote every single year, but now I'm about to contradict myself. We actually vote every single day. And what I mean by that is whenever we spend our money, we're voting with our dollars. We often think of this in terms of national companies. Think Coke versus Pepsi. If you like Coke, you buy Coke, and you don't buy Pepsi. And at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, the companies tally up their votes or their profits, and a few companies win, and the rest lose. But why don't we think about this locally? I think it's because a lot of great local organizations, they're just not sexy. They don't have $1 million marketing budget that Coke or Pepsi has. But what you'll find is typically the unsexier the organization, the more profoundly impactful their work actually is. Here in Milwaukee, it might be simple names: Black leaders organizing communities, Safe and Sound empowering neighborhoods, or my favorite, Friend of the Park. Again, not sexy, but critically important. And what I realized is every month I would mindlessly spend $30 to $45 supporting national organizations and companies where my money would leave my community. Think Netflix, Hulu, Spotify. I think I have Disney Plus. I think I forgot to cancel or something. And why? So I can watch Tiger King? Now, entertainment is important, and you should still use all those services, but my challenge to you is, if you have the extra income to spend $30 to $45 a month on that, try to find that for your local community as well, and spend locally. And spend locally is not just about money. It's about your talent and your time. A lot of these organizations, they run on volunteers and in-kind services. So if you don't have the funds, you have your time and your talent that you can give to these organizations to really make an impact in your local. And there's two things you'll realize. The first is that these organizations go above and beyond to stretch your dollar to maximize impact. And the second thing is, you'll see money being injected right back into your community, and again, you'll see the change happen. And that inspires you and allows you to take on new challenges that come your way. The final part of this framework is to connect local. And this is very topical, as many of us are facing social isolation right now. But let's be real, social isolation is not a new phenomenon. In fact, it's probably increased tenfold over the past 5 years. As all these new technologies and tools come online and we can connect with every corner of the globe, I know for me, counterintuitively, sometimes that makes me feel more alone than ever. And so why I think this is we've used social media as an outlet without really a goal. I would go on social media and I would either tweet at John Legend to drop some new music, or I would just doom scroll and refresh my feed and see all the negative news, and it just would make me anxious. I didn't really have a purpose. What we realized with Bridge the City is you can actually leverage social media, online tools to benefit local, amplify local voices, connect with local organizations, and find other people in your neighborhood that care about the same issues that you do. But connection is not just digital, it's physical as well. And we've all felt kind of the rush and the purpose you get when you're united with a group of people for a common cause. Just look at the thousands of protests that went across America this year. People coming together with a clear purpose. And it makes you think that change is possible. And so, I know this is called Embrace Local. And I didn't want to call it Find Local because I think everyone has a local. But for me, I never embraced it. I came to Milwaukee from Minnesota, and in Minnesota, I just kind of went about my day. But when I got to Milwaukee, I learned the power of local through AmeriCorps. It was through colleagues, students, family, friends, organizations in Milwaukee, all striving with a common purpose, that I saw the power of community and I saw the power of local. So my words of wisdom today is, you don't need to feel alone. There is someone in your community or in your neighborhood that cares about the same issues that you do. And if you can connect with them, you can make a difference. Now, there's a great proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. So that's the framework. It's to vote local, to spend local, and to connect local. And like Bridge the City, I want to leave you all with an action step during this talk. And it's in each of those categories. Vote local, identify a candidate that isn't, a big name, not a governor, not a senator, but a local candidate. And really go canvass for them, donate to them, inform yourself on that issue, and get your friends involved as well. For spend local, I want to challenge you. Figure out how much you spend on monthly streaming platforms and see if you can match that in your own community. And finally, connect local. If you're passionate about an issue, find an event once a month on that issue and go. Make an effort to connect with other people that care about that same issue, and you'll be amazed. So, the beautiful thing about local is everyone has one. So I encourage you, go find your local, embrace your local, and you will make a difference. Thank you.